The galaxy was burning. Star systems that had shone for billions of years now glowed with the cold light of wreckage. Whole worlds, once alive with laughter and trade, had fallen silent, their skies filled with drifting ash and debris. The Coalition of Worlds, a proud alliance of many alien races, had been fighting for survival for years against a single enemy, the Dravak Empire. The Dravak were not just conquerors, they were erasers. Wherever they went, they left nothing behind. Cities were not occupied, they were turned to dust. Prisoners were not taken. They were executed without a word. On the Valara frontline, the war was entering its final stage. Coalition fleets were scattered, their numbers thinned to almost nothing. The last stronghold, the Valara system, was under siege. In the war room of the Coalition command ship, Ravala's Hope, Admiral Corvin stood over a holographic map. His long, scaled fingers rested against the table as he stared at the blinking red markers, each one a Dravavak warship. "There is no path left," whispered Captain Shura, his second in command. Her voice trembled despite her training. "If we pull the defense line back any further, the Dravak will have a direct route to the inner worlds." Corvinus' eyes were tired. "We have already lost the outer colonies. We hold here, or there will be nothing left to defend." Outside the viewport, the scene was chaos. Dozens of alien ships fired their last energy reserves into the blackness of space. Bright beams lanced across the void, striking enemy shields that barely flickered. Dravak warships, sleek and black like blades of night, advanced without pause. Ravala's Hope shuddered under impact. Somewhere deep inside the ship, alarms wailed. "Shields at 28%, shouted the tactical officer. "We can't hold much longer." No one in the room said it aloud, but they all knew the truth. This was the end of the Valara front. The strange signal then, in the middle of the chaos. Something strange happened. "Admiral, I'm picking up a transmission, the comms," officer said, blinking at her console. "It's not on any coalition frequency. It's old, very old." "Old?" Corvin frowned. "How old?" "Centuries," she replied. "The code format hasn't been used since before the coalition was formed. And it's repeating the same message. Put it through." A burst of static filled the room. The voice that followed was strange, calm, firm, and different. Not the smooth or clicking tones of any known alien race. It was sharp, precise, almost metallic in its rhythm. "Hold the line. Reinforcements inbound." The officers looked at each other in disbelief. "Is this some kind of joke?" Captain Shura asked. "There are no reinforcements. We're the last fleet." "Trace it," Corvin ordered. The comms officer worked quickly. "It's coming from the edge of the system, beyond our sensor range. Sir, it's moving fast. Very fast." "How fast?" The officer hesitated. "Faster than any ship we've ever seen." The black shape in the void on the edge of the Valara system, in the cold dark between stars, something moved. It was huge, larger than any coalition battleship, but it made no sound, no energy flare. Its hull was black, not painted but built from a material that seemed to drink in light. It cut through space like a shadow. Sensors from both sides began to detect it, but the readings were wrong, impossible in fact. Its energy output was minimal, yet it was accelerating faster than any ship should be able to. On the Dravak flagship, Commander Varzek leaned forward in his chair, narrowing his yellow eyes at the sensor readout. "What is that?" he growled. "Unknown, Commander. No matching signatures in our archives," replied his sensor officer. "Destroy it before it reaches the battlefield," Varzek ordered. Dravak cruisers moved to intercept. They formed a wall, blocking the path of the approaching vessel. There, weapons charged, glowing red against the darkness. But the black ship did not slow. The Coalition's last stand, back on the Ravala's Hope. The Coalition fleet was breaking. 2 more destroyers had been lost. The line was collapsing. "We cannot wait for a phantom signal," Captain Shura said bitterly. "We must retreat while we still can. And where will we go?" Corvin replied, "There is nowhere left to run." The comms officer suddenly straightened in her seat. "Sir, the unknown ship just broke through the Dravak intercept line." "What?" "They fired at it. But the shots didn't even scratch its hull. It's still coming." Corvin turned to the main viewport just in time to see it, a shape emerging from the blackness of space. Sleek, angular, and utterly alien, yet somehow not alien at all. It was unlike any Coalition design, and certainly not Dravak. "What race builds something like that?" Shura whispered. No one answered. The first contact. The black ship slowed as it reached the Coalition fleet. Then, without warning, it transmitted a wideband message. "This is the UN's Valiant. Identify yourself." The voice was the same as before, steady, commanding, and strange. Corvin stepped forward. "This is Admiral Corvin of the Coalition Defense Fleet. We are grateful for your assistance, whoever you are." There was a pause. Then the voice replied, "Stay behind us. Target the Dravak stragglers. We'll take the main force." Shura frowned. "One ship? Against the entire Dravak fleet?" But the Valiant was already moving. The first strike, the Dravak flagship opened fire. A massive energy beam lanced toward the Valiant. For a brief moment, it seemed the black ship would be swallowed whole, but then the beam bent away, sliding harmlessly past its hull. What was that? Shura breathed. The Valiant returned fire once. Just once, a thin, needle-like beam of white light flashed across the void, striking a Dravak battleship. There was no explosion, no debris. The ship simply vanished, erased from existence as though it had never been. Every Dravak vessel stopped firing for a heartbeat. The battlefield went silent. "By the stars," Corvin whispered. "What are they?" "The tide turns with the Valiant at the front." The Coalition ships found new courage. They followed, targeting weakened Dravak ships. The Dravak fleet, for the first time in the war, began to fall back. On the Dravak flagship, Varzek slammed his fist against the console. "Retreat! We will regroup and crush them later." But in his heart, he felt something he had never felt before: fear. The ending scene of Part 1, when the battle was over, the Coalition ships gathered around the Valiant. No one had ever seen a ship like it. No one had ever heard of its people. Voice spoke one last time before cutting comms. "This was only a warning shot. Tell us where the Dravak home fleet is." And then, without waiting for an answer, the black warship began to move again, deeper into the darkness, leaving the stunned Coalition commanders behind. Somewhere in that silence, Corvin knew one thing for certain: the war had just changed, forever. The black warship, the UN's Valiant, drifted at the front of the Coalition fleet, its dark hull almost blending with the stars. No one spoke on the Coalition command ship Ravala's Hope. They were still trying to understand what had happened. Hours ago, they had been ready to die. The Dravak fleet had been about to crush them completely. Then the Valiant arrived, cut through the enemy like they were nothing, and left just as quietly. Admiral Corvin stood at the viewport, eyes fixed on the black shape. He still couldn't believe it. One ship turned the tide, he muttered. Captain Shura came beside him. "It shouldn't be possible. That beam, the way it erased a battleship, no Coalition weapon can do that." Corvin's voice was low. "And it's not Coalition tech, which means they've been hiding somewhere for a very long time." An unwelcome message. Valiant's COM channel opened without request. A deep human voice spoke. "Coalition fleet, this is Captain Elias Grant of the United Nations Navy. You are to follow our lead. Your fleet will take defensive formation. Our ship will engage the Dravak main force." Shura frowned. They give orders like they own the battlefield. Corvin raised an eyebrow. After what we saw, perhaps they do. Shura turned to the comms officer. Ask them where they're from. The comms officer sent the query. The reply came fast but short, from far enough that the Dravik have never dared come near, until now. No further explanation that the Dravaks rage across. The system, on the Dravak flagship Bloodfang, Commander Varzek stood in the strategy chamber. The defeat they had just suffered was unacceptable. You allowed one ship to humiliate the Empire, hissed High Warlord Dravik on the hololink. His voice was deep and dangerous. One ship. It is not an ordinary vessel, Varzek growled. Its weapons, we've never seen their like. Its armor ignores our fire. Then you will find its weakness, Dravik snapped. Or I will find your replacement. Varzek clenched his claws. I already have a plan. We will lure it into a trap, and this time it will not escape. Preparing for battle back with the Coalition, the Valiant moved ahead of the fleet, its engines glowing faintly. On the bridge, Captain Grant stood with his crew. The human bridge looked different from any Coalition design, dark metal, smooth screens and strange blue light along the panels. Crew members wore black uniforms with silver insignia, their faces calm, eyes sharp. Status on the main gun? Grant asked. Fully charged, replied Lieutenant Harris. Gravity coils stable. We can fire again as soon as targets are locked. Grant nodded. Good. When the Dravik regroup, they'll come with everything they have. We'll be ready. The calm before the storming the Revala's hope, the Coalition officers were restless. Some believed the humans could win them the war. Others feared they would bring even greater danger. Shura looked at Corvin. They fight like they faced worse enemies before. But if that's true, who were those enemies? Corvin shook his head. Questions for later. For now, we survive. A sudden alarm blared. The sensor officer shouted, multiple Dravak signatures, 50 ships, incoming fast. The second battle begins. The Dravak fleet appeared from hyperspace, their black and crimson hulls bristling with weapons. They moved like predators closing in for the kill. On the Valiant, Captain Grant's voice was steady. Coalition fleet, hold position. Fire only at targets we disable. Let us handle the main assault. In the Dravak command chamber, Varzek snarled. Focus all fire on the human vessel. Ignore the others. The Dravak warships opened fire. Space lit up with deadly beams and torpedoes. The Valiant's shields flared but held. Then the black ship vanished from enemy scanners. The disappearing ship, one moment the Valiant was in front of them. The next it was gone. On the Dravak flagship, sensor officers panicked. Commander, the target, it's not on our scopes. Find it, Varzek roared. A heartbeat later, the Valiant reappeared, right behind the Dravak formation. The first strike fire. Grant said. The main gun released a beam of pure white energy. A Dravak cruiser disappeared instantly, erased from existence. Two others nearby spun out of control. Their hulls warped and twisted. Coalition ships gasped in disbelief. The Valiant moved like a predator among prey, its secondary weapons cutting through fighters and corvettes. Every shot was precise, no wasted. Fire! Dravak counterattack. Varric roared. All ships, reverse course, surround it. Dravak ships swarmed toward the Valiant, but the human vessel turned sharply, engines flaring bright. It dove straight through the enemy formation, releasing a spread of glowing spheres. The spheres detonated silently. No fire, just sudden void. Space itself seemed to tear, and Dravak ships were pulled apart by invisible forces. Coalition joins. In seeing the enemy in chaos, Corvin gave the order, all ships, advance. Strike now! Coalition vessels surged forward, targeting damaged Dravak ships. The tide of battle turned once more, a message to fear. Within minutes, the Dravak fleet was in retreat. Only a handful of ships escaped. The Valiant did not pursue. Instead, it opened comes to both sides. "This was your last warning," Captain Grant said. His voice was calm but cold. "Leave Coalition space, or the next time, we will not let you run." The message was recorded and spread across the galaxy. End of Part 2. Scene on the Dravak flagship. Varzek slammed his claws on the table. "They think they can frighten us. They have no idea what awaits them." On the Valiant, Captain Grant looked out at the stars. "They'll be back," he said quietly, "and we'll be waiting." Somewhere deep in the shadows of space, the war had just entered a new phase, one the Dravak had not planned for. The news spread faster than light, from the deep trading ports of the Outer Rim to the hidden fortresses of the Dravak Empire. Everyone was speaking about the battle in the Valara system. The story was unbelievable, yet the battle records were clear. One unknown warship had destroyed a Dravak fleet almost alone. Some called it a ghost ship. Others whispered that it was a weapon from an ancient, forgotten war. But most were asking the same question: who are the humans? Dravak High commanding the heart of Dravak space, deep inside the Black Fortress world of Karvok, the High Command gathered. The room was circular, lined with red banners of the Empire. High Warlord Dravak stood at the center. His yellow eyes glowed with controlled rage. "You all saw the footage," he growled. "One ship won, erased our battleships like they were made of glass. This is a shame on the Empire." A general stepped forward. "We have no record of this United Nations Navy. Our archives contain nothing about their world or their fleets." "Then search deeper," Dravak ordered. "If this ship exists, they have a home. And if they have a home, they can be destroyed." Commander Varzek, still recovering from the humiliation of the Valara defeat, spoke carefully. "Warlord, I request permission to hunt them. I will study their movements. I will learn their weaknesses, and I will break them." Dravak's eyes narrowed. "You have one chance, Varzek. Fail, and your ship will burn before theirs." On the Valiant far from Dravak space, the Un's Valiant cruised silently through the black void. Inside, Captain Elias Grant stood on the bridge, his arms folded behind his back. The human crew moved with quiet efficiency. They did not celebrate their victory at Valara. They did not boast. They simply worked, checking systems, recharging weapons, scanning for threats. Lieutenant Harris approached. "Sir, Coalition Command requests we attend a strategy meeting. They want to discuss future joint operations." Grant nodded. "Send our acceptance." "And Harris, remind the crew, the Dravak aren't finished. Valara was just the beginning." "Yes, sir." Coalition meeting. The meeting was held aboard a massive Coalition station, orbiting a gas giant. Admirals and commanders from a dozen races attended, each wearing the colors of their worlds. When Captain Grant entered, the room fell silent. Many of them had never seen a human before. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that scanned the room like a hunter measuring prey. His black uniform carried no decoration except a small silver emblem. Admiral Corvin began the session. "We owe our survival at Valara to the humans. Without them, we would not be here today. But we must understand, why are they here now? Where have they been all this time?" All eyes turned to Grant. His voice was calm. "We come from beyond your mapped galaxy. Our people have stayed hidden, far from the wars and politics of this region. But when we detected the Dravak expanding toward our space, we acted. We don't start wars, but we finish them." Murmurs spread through the room. A reptilian general leaned forward. "If you have such power, why only one ship? Do you not have a fleet?" Grant's gaze hardened. "That is not your concern. What matters is that the Dravak will fall. If you want our help, follow our lead. If not, stay out of our way." Rumors and fear-word of the meeting leaked almost immediately. Coalition soldiers whispered in mess halls. Traders spoke of superhumans with technology beyond imagination. But in Dravak space, the whispers carried fear. Pilots told stories of a black ship that appeared from nowhere and vanished just as quickly. Some claimed it could warp gravity itself. Others swore it used weapons that erased matter entirely. In the Dravak fleet yards, recruitment slowed. Even hardened warriors hesitated at the thought of facing the valiant. Varzek's Trap Commander Varzek studied every scrap of data from the Valara battle. He slowed the footage frame by frame, analyzing the Valiant's movements, its weapon, fire, and its shield reactions. He saw patterns. The human ship's main gun was devastating, but it took time to recharge. Its shields were strong, but when surrounded and attacked from multiple angles, their glow intensified, perhaps showing strain. Varzek smiled coldly. We will bleed them slowly. Force them to reveal their weaknesses. He ordered his fleet to prepare an ambush near the dead star Ravek's grave, a place where the light of the sun had died millions of years ago. There, he would surround the Valiant with no escape route. Warning signs on the Valiant. Sensors picked up unusual transmissions. Lieutenant Harris frowned at his console. Sir, multiple encrypted bursts in Dravak code, repeating every few hours. Looks like coordination signals. Grant studied the readings. They're setting a trap. Harris hesitated. Should we avoid it? Grant shook his head. No, we walk into it. The crew exchanged glances but said nothing. Into the darkness, the Valiant entered the Ravak system. The dead star loomed ahead, its lightless surface cold and silent. The system was littered with jagged rocks and shattered moons. Perfect hiding. Places for warships. As they moved closer, Dravak ships began to emerge from behind the debris. First 10, then 20, then 30. They closed in from all sides. On the Coalition command channel, Admiral Corvin's voice was urgent. Valiant, pull back, you're surrounded. But Captain Grant only replied, watch closely, Admiral. You'll never see this twice. End scene for Part 3. The Dravak formation tightened, their weapons charging in unison. The void seemed to close around the Valiant. On the Bloodfang, Varzek grinned. This is the end for your ghost ship. On the Valiant, Captain Grant's eyes narrowed, weapons free. The first flash of impossible white light cut through the darkness, and the battle for Ravak's grave began. The Un's Valiant floated in the dark, surrounded by the Dravak fleet. 30 enemy warships formed a tight circle, their black hulls glinting faintly in the dead light of the Ravak system. Beyond them, the cold, dead star loomed like a silent witness. On the Dravak flagship Bloodfang, Commander Varzek's grin was sharp and cruel. They have nowhere to run, he said to his officers. No allies, no reinforcements, and no escape routes. We will fire together and tear them apart. His second-in-command nodded. The fleet is ready. We await your order. Varzek looked out at the Valiant. Begin charging all weapons. I want the human ship erased from existence. On the Valiant, inside the Valiant's bridge, the atmosphere was calm. The crew moved with precision, hands gliding over controls. Lieutenant Harris reported. Enemy formation confirmed. 30 ships, mixed cruisers and battleships. All weapons charging. Captain Elias Grant stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back. Good. Let them think they have the advantage. Harris glanced at him. Sir, you planned for this? Grant's mouth curved slightly. Of course. Traps work both ways. The first volley. Varzek's voice thundered through the Dravak fleet's com channel. Fire! 30 ships unleashed their weapons at once. Red energy beams streaked through space, followed by swarms of guided plasma torpedoes. The void lit up with deadly light. The Valiant's shields flared bright blue, absorbing the impacts. The ship trembled, but the hull held firm. On the Coalition channel, Admiral Corvin's voice broke through. Valiant, you can't take another volley like that. Get out of there. But Grant's reply was steady. We're not going anywhere. The counterattack. Grant turned to his weapons officer. Activate gravity blades. The officer's fingers danced across the console. Blades active, sir. From the Valiant's sides, long faint arcs of shimmering distortion extended into the void. They looked almost invisible until they moved. With a sharp command, the Valiant spun in place. The gravity blades sliced through the nearest Revat cruiser like a knife through paper. The ship split cleanly in two, each half drifting apart silently before its reactor imploded. Harris called out, "One down." Grant's voice was calm. "Keep going." Chaos in the Dravak fleet on the Bloodfang. Panic broke through the bridge crew's discipline. What is that weapon?" One officer shouted. "It's cutting through armor like nothing." Varzek slammed a claw on the armrest. "Regroup. Keep your distance. Don't let them close in." But the Valiant was already moving again, darting between enemy lines, its gravity blades sweeping in wide arcs. Another cruiser fell. Then a battleship. The decoy plan. Grant's voice carried over the bridge. "Deploy decoys. Flood their sensors." Small black pods launched from the Valiant's hull, scattering in every direction. Each pod emitted a false signature, mimicking the human ship's engine output. On the Dravak sensors, dozens of Valiants appeared at once. "They're everywhere," shouted a Dravak officer. "We can't get a lock." Varzek's eyes narrowed. "Then destroy them all." The Dravak fleet fired wildly into the void, wasting precious energy on empty space. Taking the flagship, Grant saw his moment. Target: the Bloodfang. Disable, don't destroy. The Valiant's main gun charged, humming with power. A beam of white energy shot out, striking the Dravak flagship. Its shields flared, then failed. Systems went dark across its hull. "Boarding teams ready," Grant ordered. Two small human assault craft detached from the Valiant, gliding toward the disabled Bloodfang. They latched onto its hull with magnetic clamps, cutting their way inside. Inside the Bloodfang, the boarding teams moved like shadows. Black armor, silent steps, precise shots. Dravak warriors rushed to defend their ship, but the humans' weapons fired bursts of blue light that dropped enemies instantly. Within minutes, the humans had reached the command deck. Varzek stood at the center, claws extended. "You think you can take me alive?" he snarled. One of the human soldiers stepped forward and leveled his weapon. "Yes." Extraction. The humans left as quickly as they came, dragging a restrained and furious Varzek with them. Back on the Valiant, he was placed in a sealed interrogation chamber. Grant stood outside the glass. "Welcome aboard, Commander. You and I are going to have a long talk about Dravaka war plans." Varzek hissed, but said nothing. The end of the battle, with their flagship captured and half their ships destroyed, the remaining Dravak vessels retreated. The Valiant did not pursue. On the Coalition channel, Admiral Corvin's voice was filled with awe. "You walked into their trap and destroyed them." Grant simply replied, "The Dravak like to think they're hunters. It's time they learned what it feels like to be prey." End scene for Part 4. As the Valiant left the Ravok system, its black hull fading into the dark, rumors began to spread again. The humans were not just skilled, they were unstoppable. But Captain Grant knew the truth. The war was far from over, and the Dravak would strike back harder than ever. The interrogation chamber was silent except for the low hum of the Valiant's engines. Commander Varzek sat in a reinforced chair, his wrists locked in glowing restraints. His yellow eyes glared through the glass at Captain Elias Grant, who stood with arms folded. "You think capturing me will win your war?" Varzek hissed. "You have no idea what's coming." Grant's gaze was cold. "Then tell me." Varzek's lips curled in a cruel smile. "The High Command has already moved the Annihilator. In 3 cycles, it will fire, and your coalition will burn." Grant's eyes narrowed. "The Annihilator?" "It is not a weapon," Varzek said slowly, savoring each word. "It is the weapon. One strike, and an entire star system dies. The intel, after hours of calculated questioning and a few quiet methods that the Dravak commander clearly feared. The humans had the coordinates. Lieutenant Harris stepped up to the holotable. A glowing red sphere appeared. This is the Dravak super weapon. It's in the Krylos system, heavily guarded, shielded, and nearly operational. Based on Varzeg's timeline, we have less than 72 hours before it fires. Admiral Corvin's face appeared on the Coalition comms channel. We can't reach it in time. Our fleets are too scattered, too damaged. Grant's voice was firm. We can reach it, alone. Shura, Corvin's second-in-command, leaned forward. One ship against their most powerful weapon? That's suicide. Grant didn't blink. Then it's a good thing suicide missions are our specialty. The race against time. The Valiant's engines roared as it left the safety of Coalition space. Every hour counted. They traveled through uncharted routes, passing near black holes and cutting through dangerous asteroid fields to save time. In the mess hall, crew members spoke quietly. None doubted their captain, but everyone understood the risk. The Valiant had faced fleets before, but never an entire fortress built to protect a weapon of mass destruction. Grant visited each section of the ship. He didn't give speeches. He didn't promise survival. He simply said, "You know your jobs. Do them." Despite 2 days into the journey, an alarm blared. Unauthorized access in engineering. A voice shouted over the COMMS. Grant and Harris rushed to the engine core, weapons drawn. There, they found a crew member, one of the Coalition liaisons, trying to sabotage the reactor. Harris stunned the traitor instantly. Under questioning, the spy confessed. "The Dravak promised me a world of my own. If I made sure you never reached Krylos." Grant's expression didn't change. "Lock him in the brig and run a full security sweep. No more surprises." Arrival at Krylos system was a graveyard of steel. Massive defense platforms floated in high orbit around the Dravak superweapon, a structure the size of a small moon, bristling with cannons. Its core glowed faintly, gathering the energy of a captured star. Harris scanned the readings. That thing could wipe out the Velara system in one shot. And their shields. "Sir, I don't think we can punch through them with brute force." Grant studied the display. "Then we won't. We'll cut their power at the source." "The plan, Grant." Explained to the crew. The Krylos weapon drew its energy from a network of 4 massive reactor stations. If they destroyed all 4 within minutes, the weapon's core would overload and self-destruct. The problem? Each reactor was protected by its own fleet. "We'll have to move fast," Grant said. "Too fast for them to coordinate." Harris, "Plot the jump sequence." We hit each target, one after the other, no pauses. Reactor 1, the Valiant dropped out of warp near the first reactor. 4 Dravak cruisers moved to intercept, but the Valiant was already firing. The gravity blades sliced through 2 cruisers before they could even fire a shot. Harris triggered a spread of torpedoes. The reactor exploded in a bloom of blue-white light. "One down," Harris said. Reactor 2, they jumped instantly. This time, 6 destroyers were waiting. The Dravak had learned from the first attack, spreading their formation to avoid being cut. "Down at once." Grant ordered evasive maneuvers. The Valiant twisted through their formation, disabling engines instead of destroying ships, saving precious seconds. A single shot from the main gun tore through the second reactor. 2 down. Harris confirmed. Reactor 3, the third jump brought them face to face with a battleship. Its heavy cannons lit the void, hammering the Valiant's shields. At 60%. The tactical officer called out. Grant didn't hesitate, ran them. The Valiant surged forward, skimming so close to the battleship's hull that the gravity blades ripped a massive gash along its side. Explosions tore through the enemy ship as the Valiant veered away and fired on the third reactor. 3 down. Harris said through gritted teeth. Reactor 4, the trap. They jumped again and flew straight into the heart of a massive fleet. The Dravik had anticipated the final target. Dozens of ships blocked the path to the last reactor. Grant's jaw tightened. All power to forward shields, hold nothing back. The Valiant plowed into the fleet like a storm. Gravity blades flashed. Main gun roared. Torpedoes streaked through the darkness. The reactor loomed ahead, but time was running out. The overload shields at 20%. Harris warned. Target the reactor's coolant lines, Grant ordered. The shot struck true. The reactor's glow intensified, then erupted in a chain reaction that spread through the entire station. Harris looked at the readings. Sir, the weapons core is destabilizing. We need to get out now. The final run. The Valiant turned sharply, engines pushing to maximum. Behind them, the Dravik superweapon's glow grew blinding. As they cleared the system, the core finally went critical. A wave of light and energy ripped through space, tearing apart the fortress and everything around it. The shockwave chased the Valiant, but the ship outran it by seconds. Aftermath. When the comms linked to Coalition space opened, Corvin's voice was almost stunned. You did it. The superweapon is gone. Grant simply replied. One less threat. But the Dravik will come for revenge. Shura's voice was firm. Then we'll be ready. With you leading the way, Grant said nothing. He was already looking at the star map, searching for the Dravik's next move. End scene for Part 5, Far Away, in the black halls of Dravik High. Command, High Warlord Dravik listened to the report of the Krylos disaster. His claws scraped the table. They destroyed our ultimate weapon, he growled. Very well, no more games. Bring me every fleet we have. If the humans want war, we will give it to them. And so, the stage was set for the final battle. The galaxy was on edge. After the destruction of the Krylos superweapon, both sides prepared for what would be the biggest battle yet. The Dravik Empire gathered every ship they could find, fleets from every corner of their vast space. Their warlords spoke of revenge and total annihilation. The coalition forces, battered but hopeful, awaited their mysterious human allies. The Un's Valiant had proven their power, but Captain Elias Grant knew the fight was far from over. Gathering storm on the bridge of the Valiant, Grant stood quietly as the fleet assembled around them. Hundreds of ships, coalition cruisers, human support vessels, and smaller fighters filled the void like a metal storm. Status report. Grant said calmly. Lieutenant Harris answered. Fleet combat readiness at 85%. All systems nominal. The Dravik are massing near the Korath system, preparing to strike. Grant nodded. This is it. We either stop them here or lose everything. Final preparations. Admiral Corvin's voice came over the comms, filled with determination. This battle will decide the future of the galaxy. We fight not just for ourselves, but for every world under threat. Captain Shura added, we will stand together, humans and coalition, against the Dravik tide. Grant looked at his crew. Prepare for jump. We enter the battle zone in 10 minutes. The calm before the storm outside the Valiant's viewport. Stars streaked as the ship moved through hyperspace. The crew moved with quiet focus. Grant walked the halls, checking on each station. No fear, no doubt. Just a clear purpose. In the mess hall, whispers spread. Can we really win? A young pilot asked. An older engineer smiled. With the humans? Yes. Their technology, their skill. It's unlike anything we've seen. Arrival at Korath, fleet dropped out of hyperspace. The Korath system was dark, with a giant gas giant at its center. But the real danger was the Dravik Armada, thousands of ships lined in a massive formation, weapons glowing bright. From the Valiant's bridge, Grant watched as the enemy prepared. Their first attack. Opening salvo. The Dravik flagship roared. sending a wave of energy toward the coalition fleet. "Shields holding," Harris said. Grant gave the order. "Return fire. Focus on their forward batteries." The battle exploded. Energy beams, missiles, and plasma bolts filled space. The soundless war lit up the void. Unexpected maneuvers. Suddenly, the Valiant vanished from enemy sensors. On the Dravak flagship, alarm screamed. "The human ship is gone. Find it." But Grant was already behind their lines. The Valiant's main gun fired a white beam, destroying a key weapon platform on the Dravak flagship, turning the tide with the Valiant breaking their formation. The coalition fleet gained confidence. Ships pushed forward, striking at weakened Dravak vessels. Captain Shura's voice came over the comms. "Keep up the pressure. We can win this." The Dravak counterattack warlord Dravak appeared on the enemy command channel. His voice was filled with fury. "Destroy the humans. Burn their ship to ashes." The Dravak launched a massive counterattack, surrounding the Valiant with dozens of fighters. Close quarters combat, the Valiant engaged in deadly dogfights. Human pilots fought fiercely, their skills unmatched. Inside the ship, crew members coordinated perfectly, using gravity blades and precise strikes to survive. Grant watched the chaos with cold eyes. "Hold steady. Don't let them break our line." The turning point. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the battlefield. The Valiant had fired a charged beam, hitting the Dravak flagship's reactor core. The enemy ship shuddered, then exploded. In a blinding fireball, the loss of their command ship broke the Dravak's morale. Their fleets began to retreat. Victory at last. The coalition fleet cheered as the Dravak withdrew. For the first time in years, hope filled their hearts. "Admiral," Corvin's voice crackled, "we've won a great victory today." "But the war is not over," Grant nodded. "We have shown what we can do together. Now we prepare for the battles to come." End scene. As the Valiant moved through the stars, Captain Grant stood alone on the bridge. The war had changed forever. Humans were no longer unknown ghosts in the galaxy. They were its protectors. But deep in the darkness, new threats stirred. And the true battle had only just begun.